Now that we've completed the model, we're going to add our annotation. Go to the floor plans and double click on first floor. We're going to be adding linear dimensions, so we'll go to annotate, choose the aligned dimension tool, and starting from the outside face of stud, click and then continue to click on the center of windows, walls, and doors until you get to the other side. This will create a dimension string. You can place a dimension string approximately a half an inch away from the drawing. And at this point we can control the dimensions. You want to avoid these irrational type fractions by controlling the placement of the items within the string. So here this 5'6" is fine, so the window is in the correct position, but I don't like this 5'3" and 5'8", so I'm going to have to move the wall. Now I want this wall and that wall to move together, so before I move this wall I want to align these two walls and lock them. So I'll go to the Modify panel, choose the Align tool. I'm going to pick the center of this wall, and then I'll pick the center of the opposite wall, and then when I see this little lock, I'm going to lock that alignment. Now when I move this wall, that wall will go along with it. So I can click on that wall to move it now and type in a new dimension. So I'm going to change that to 5 feet even. Now I have these fractions showing up with these two dimensions, which means the window needs to shift in order to get rid of those fractions. So I'm going to select the window now to move it. And we ended up getting our temporary dimensions on top of our dimensions that we actually are using for the drawing. So you want to make sure you're selecting the dimension that we're using for the drawing. Or there is a way, I believe, to turn off temporary dimensions. I couldn't seem to find where to turn off the temporary dimensions, but I was able to change them so they didn't overlap our dimensions, so we could clearly see our own dimensions. What I did was went into Manage, went into Additional Settings, and down here under Temporary Dimensions, I just changed the walls from centerline to face of core. And that just repositioned those temporary dimensions to make it easier for us to see the permanent dimensions. So now I can click on either one of these permanent dimensions, and I'm going to click on this one and make it the same value as the other side of the drawing. So now our dimensions look nice and clean. For the next dimension string, we'll go to Annotate and hit Aligned again. This time I'm getting an overall dimension from the outside face of stud. And you'll notice that when you place the second dimension, it will lock in place at the proper distance, just like that. Now I'm going to make some adjustments to our dimension style. First of all, I don't like how far up the text or the dimensions show up. And what you will notice is when we create a dimension that's less than a foot, we end up getting a 0 in front of it. Here's an example. And I want to get rid of that 0 in front of the dimension. So I'm going to again go to Manage, go to Additional Settings, and choose, well, maybe it's under Units. I think it might be under Project Units. When I see the length measurements here, there's the format. If I click on that, I can make some additional adjustments. So I'm going to suppress 0 feet and hit OK. Now I don't have the 0 in front of the dimension. The other thing I can do is select one of the dimensions, and over here in Properties I can edit that dimension style. This is the dimension style, so if I keep it the same name, it will update all dimension styles used that are the same style. So I'm going to hit Edit Type, and I'm going to adjust how far the text is from my line, which is text offset right here. Set to a 16th. I'm going to set it to 1/32. And now our text is a bit closer. And we've made improvements to the overall dimension layout. Continue to do that so that all of your openings have been dimensioned all the way around the house. Alright, so your dimensions should look like this. I am going to have to address some dimensions. This string came out fine, and notice that I picked up this wall with this dimension, this wall, and this wall, so that we could locate all of those walls in that direction. And then over here I have to clean up some fractions here. I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side, making sure I grab the permanent dimension and changing that to 5'6". And then in the front I want to make adjustments. I want to make that 5'6", and we'll make this window over here 5'6", and that corrects the other two dimensions, since our door, it looks like, must have been placed centered when we placed it initially. Now all I'm doing is looking for any walls that I have not located by putting the outside dimensions, and I don't know the location of this wall or this wall, so I'm going to put a single dimension string starting from the outside to the first wall and then the second wall, and I'll just place that string over here. This wall needs to be adjusted, so I'm going to change that to 3'7", and this wall also needs to be adjusted to get rid of that fraction, and I'm going to change that to just an even 2 feet. Might mean that I have to put that sink up a little bit, so I'm just going to nudge it to make sure that that's a minimum of 4 inches away from the wall. Now we can go ahead out to the outside here and place our dimensions for our columns. So I'm going to continue a dimension from this witness line, or from this dimension string. So you can select an existing dimension string and then choose Edit Witness Lines and add additional information to that string. So that brings us out to here. Then I can click outside or away from the dimensions, or just click on nothing, and that will add those two strings to the dimension. If you want to remove a string, you can select the witness line or the string and hit Edit Witness Line, and then click on this same item that you have dimensioned, and it will remove that dimension. And so that's how you can add and subtract dimensions in an existing string. So I need to make corrections here for the column position. So I'm going to select the column, and I want the column to be 6 inches in. And I actually want this outside edge of the deck to be 5 feet 6 inches from the outside face of stud. So I need to select my floor, I need to edit the boundary, and I'm going to set that dimension by putting a temporary dimension in here from the outside face of stud to the outside of the floor deck, and now I can click on that line and change that to an even 6 feet. Then I can just get rid of that dimension and then click on the checkbox to finish editing the sketch for that floor. So then this resulted in this dimension moving on me because the column stayed in place, but we moved this in. So I want to select the column again, change that to 6 inches, and now it's 5'6" plus 6 inches gives us an even 6 feet. Now I want all the rest of these columns to align with that one. So I'm going to go to the Modify tool, click on Align, and I want to create a multiple alignment. So I'm going to select the first column that's in the correct position, and whoop, it looks like I selected the horizontal, vertical line rather than horizontal line. So I want to pick that line and then pick the other 4 columns so that they all line up. And I can lock those at this point so that they stay together. That makes sense to do that. Now I can create a dimension going in this direction. So I would go to Annotate, Aligned, picking the outside edge of the floor. I want to go to the center of each column, and we'll place that dimension string out here like this. So these need to be fixed. So I'm going to select this column first, change that to, oops, let's see, this doesn't seem to be attached to the column. So let me delete that, and I'm going to try that again. So aligned, I'm going to go from outside to center, to center, to center, to center, and then to the outside. Now I can select that column, pick that dimension, and then type in 6 inches. You've got to be careful with what you select as your reference for your dimension, because what the dimension is attached to controls how you can controls how you can control it parametrically. So I must not have picked the center of that column precisely, or I might not have picked a point precisely, and so it was an arbitrary dimension that wasn't really attached to anything, so therefore I couldn't use that dimension to control the column's position. So I'm going to select this column now and put in 8 feet, and we'll select this one and put in 8 feet over here. So now our columns are all evenly spaced. Actually, they're not yet. Now they will. Whoops. Let's make sure that that is 6 inches, not 6 feet. There we go. Then I select this column and put in 8 feet. So now they're all evenly spaced. I'm not concerned that that is 7 foot 2.5. I just want I want these 2 columns to be centered on the house, and that will be fine laid out that way. Now we're ready to move on to labeling or tagging windows and doors and labeling rooms.